to Sports Counsel, your playbook for all things sports. I am your host Matt, and I'm here with G for this episode of the show. The 2025 NFL Draft is officially in the books, and there is no shortage of storylines. We are here to give our reactions and takes on everything that went down in Green Bay this weekend. Why did Shedeur Sanders fall so far? What are the Steelers doing at quarterback? And how would we grade our team's offseasons? We answer all of that and more. Today is April 29th, 2025, and this is episode 174 of the show.
Man, it's NFL season again.
I love it. I mean, draft is okay. I don't think there was really any, I felt like there was not a lot of drama other than the one big drama that we're going to talk about, immediately. But, it was pretty uneventful.
Right. I mean, but yeah, besides that, it was, like you said, very uneventful. I also just going into the draft, I wasn't too excited about the class where, offensively, the two best positions are running back and tight end.
That's fair.
It's not really the most interesting thing in the world, right?
There's no trade. There's two trades, I want to say, in the first round, right?
Three technically. There was the Browns, Jags, and then there was whoever traded Houston and whoever, I think the Rams.
It's the Rams one.
The Rams and Houston.
And the Giants one, right?
Yeah, Houston, Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, either way, we are here to talk about all there was in the draft, the offseason in general. I know we didn't do a free agency recap episode, so we're going to be implementing a little bit of that into this episode. But before we get started, G, why don't you tell the people where we are?
Man, I would love to tell them where we are. We're on all social media. That's where we are. You can find us anywhere and everywhere. So that starts with Instagram and Threads, Sports_Counsel. And then if you go to Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, that's also Sports_Counsel. It's crazy how that works. We're Sports_Counsel on everything. And now even on TikTok, where you'll see some clips of our previous episodes and maybe some coming future ones. So if you don't want to miss out, TikTok, check it out. We'll be seeing more and more content down there as well, slowly and surely. But man, that's where you'll find us. And the best part is, in the link of all those social medias, you're going to find a Discord link as well. So if you want to come chat, ask questions, you want to just kick it, live reactions, stuff like that, kind of have that, discourse, Discord. You'll find us there as well. So check us out, Sports_Counsel on everything. It's that simple. It's that easy.
Definitely got to join. Discord was popping with the draft. Again, not as eventful as before, but it did crash out, I think, twice during the draft. So you definitely want to see that.
Yeah, Matt's a crash out, confirmed.
Always. I keep it very low key for the episodes, but that's just because it's days after the actual games and stuff. But let's get into it here. First of all, G, I want to congratulate you because we did your mock draft episode last week. You said you were aiming for about, I think, 75% of the players in the first round correct. I think it was 8 for 32, right? That was kind of your...
on exact picks, yep.
Yeah, your target, right? Well, G, you went 10 for 10 on the exact correct picks. I'm going to give you a little bit of a bump here because you did say Travis Hunter to the Browns at second overall. You did go second overall, so I'm just going to give you that. So then you went 10 for 10.
And then the same with Mason Graham. So I had both their spots right. And technically, I almost had both their teams right.
We'll give it to you. It's close enough, right?
Even then, I still hit my targets. 8 out of 8 would have been without it.
Exactly.
However you want to look at it. I still, they pay millions of dollars to these fucking bums on TV to talk about what I just did. 1.0. Come on, bro. I would have had some changes too if I needed a 2.0. But, we rock out 1.0, do better than most of your favorite mock drafters. So, hey, man, just remember where you get your information from when you're, thinking about it. Think about what they got. Put my stats up with their stats.
Exactly. That's why you do it, right? It's just for the love of the game, honestly. And, you get to claim that you're right in the end.
Which is the most important thing here.
That's exactly what we do this for, actually. 27 out of 32 of the first round players correct. So that was better than last year. So really only 5 players that you didn't see coming. But I think that's really, really good. It's very, very impressive.
Yeah. I'm impressed by myself.
Yeah. One of those players, though, that was not drafted in the first round was the biggest surprise.
What
probably.
everybody got wrong, though.
Yeah, it's Shedeur Sanders. I did get the one prediction that I made in that episode.
You did get it right.
Was that Shedeur Sanders would be the third quarterback selected. Jackson Dart would be selected ahead of him. I'm going to give myself 75% credit on that one because Jackson Dart was drafted first, but Shedeur was not drafted third. He was drafted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I want to say. Right?
Yeah.
6th quarterback behind
something like that.
Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shaw, Jalen Milroe, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders with the 5th round pick to the Cleveland Browns, who already drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. Before that, I mean, this was the storyline of the draft right here. Analysts such as, maybe the pundit you were talking about earlier, G, were crashing out over, Shedeur not being picked early, and it went on because it was like 3 days. It went on for a very long time. The storylines were crazy. There were a lot of tweets that were happening. A certain president was involved in trying to make sure that Shedeur was drafted. It was the talk of the town, honestly. And I think everyone's just trying to understand, even now, why did that happen?
Yeah, I think it's $1 million question, but I think I have a generally good answer to you, and I think it first starts with after the college football season's finished, I think he was a first round pick. And I'm not just saying that. I don't have any information. I don't have inside sources. I'm just going to go based off just what he put out there and what, the perception was around him, right? So I think he had a first round grade, right? So now you take that for what it is, first round quarterback going into the NFL process. And I heard someone say that the NFL teams don't really start watching or getting into these college players until after their Super Bowl, after their season ends, right? So you got a lot of NFL teams that are now like, okay, let's see what Shedeur's about, right? And then no Senior Bowl, and you have no combine, so you have no place to display your skills other than the pro day, which for all intents and purposes went well. I can watch that and be like, it was a bad pro day, or there's no such thing as a bad pro day. They're in shorts throwing 70-yard passes. It all looks good, right?
You're telling me the college that is promoting the athlete would have a bad pro day for them? They wouldn't have it for them?
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, so there's that, right? And now you go into these interviews, which obviously these are the sources that we all heard and we all have seen the tweets and stuff. But I think he definitely was told by his dad that, we're going to pick and choose kind of where we're going to go. Because that was their whole memo. That's what he said. Deion said it. They said it. That's not a source thing, right? That's what they said. There were certain teams that they weren't going to go through with, right? And so there's maybe there was a Giants, I think, that was reported that he basically just showed up and didn't give a flying fuck, right? He wasn't prepared because he didn't want to go there, most likely, so he didn't really show up like he wanted to. And so maybe he was trying to control his destiny. But now it's a team that all their picks are basically X'd off on, right? It's not just that one first-round pick or the second round. You're like, the Giants aren't drafting anymore, right? Period. And maybe I don't know how many more teams that happened with, but word gets around, so I'm sure if the Giants called a team calls them, whatever, they ask how it went, they're going to say it went horribly, and that's going to draw a concern, right? So from word around town, they probably got really bad for him. And then it goes into, I think, a more primary second reason is after he fell out the first round, if you kind of kept along the last 4 or 5 years, second-round quarterbacks aren't getting drafted that high. So you have him falling out of the first, and then no one really drafts quarterbacks in the second. So you're looking at the earliest third round pick. Third round picks are usually project quarterbacks that may potentially start, may not. And we're talking even fourth, fifth, right? They're talking about guys like Sam Howell, right? Never even got a chance, barely got a chance, one chance, right, to start, and that's it. But you're primarily starting off a backup. And it's kind of like, Kaepernick, where it's too much attention for your backup quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, you're going to have your dad's going to be involved. He already said that. He's going to be said loud and opinion matters. So then if your team sucks or your team's not doing well, what is Deion going to say? Put in Shedeur and see what changes, right? Yeah. So it's not a good look for your backup quarterback, especially if you're in a situation where you're comfortable with your quarterback.
Exactly.
Right? Maybe you don't want that for your quarterback. Maybe you have a different young quarterback that doesn't need that type of pressure on him, right? Mm-hmm. That Deion's asking for Shedeur to play or stuff like that. So it's all that attention as a backup quarterback or project quarterback, it's not well warranted for a lot of teams. So a team we're going to talk about later, the Steelers, if Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback, who already is a diva and has issues and is a big, media problem then why would you pair him with Dion and Shedeur?
Exactly.
If that's also going to be a big storyline. So now you've got multiple storylines and stuff like that. So I see that's why he kind of flipped. So kind of a mumbo jumbo of all of that.
Yeah, and I talked about it briefly in our mock draft episode where I didn't necessarily think that Shedeur was probably the best quarterback in this draft class. I thought he was pretty good. I thought he would be drafted in the first round, but it was, it wasn't the best tape, right? I thought he had a lot of intangible skills. He had, he doesn't necessarily have the quarterback kind of height and strength, arm strength, but, that's stuff that isn't necessarily always, like prioritized, right? They don't always need to have that. Tyler Shaw or Dalen Gabriel don't really have the size or the kind of arm strength or, the requisite physical profile that, Shedeur also doesn't have, but they still got drafted ahead of him. So I think he still was, in terms of just the athlete on paper, draftable, right? Earlier than the 5th round. I think obviously the biggest thing is probably due to his attitude, right? It's probably, he probably blew those interviews, and a couple of reports have come out that, he wasn't able to take accountability for like an interception that they showed him on film, right? Or, they asked him to look at like these prepackaged, plays and see what's wrong. And there was supposed to be a mistake that he was supposed to identify. He couldn't identify it, right? So, at the end of the day, we can all relate to the fact that, this is a job interview, right? We've all been through that. And you have
it's
to,
not,
you have
it's
to
not
put your
going
best
into the
foot
NFL
forward,
or
right?
going to college football, right? Where you're like making decisions, you have options and shit, right? Like,
Yeah.
If these NFL teams want you, they'll take you. And if they don't want you, they don't need you. They move on, they make their millions of dollars regardless.
And we know the NFL, well, no matter what they do, if you are talented enough, they will sign you, right? You could do some heinous shit off the field.
As long as the talent outweighs the problem,
exactly.
right?
If Hannibal Lecter ran a 4.340, his crime would be classified as an eating disorder, right? That's exactly what the thing is. Shedeur's talent was not enough to kind of outweigh the attitude issues that he had. The talent, was just not good enough. And then, like you said, G, it's a distraction for 28 out of 32 teams that don't actually need a starting quarterback right now. And again, he's not projected to probably be a star starting quarterback. He doesn't have the elite traits right now. He isn't as developed right now. He will have to get into it. But, I don't think that his huge fan base, which is still pretty huge, even though there was a lot of criticism on him, Dion, everybody, is clamoring for him. When the president is tweeting about you to get drafted, you are going to be a distraction.
No backup
right?
quarterback in the NFL history has ever had a court tweet from the active president.
Yeah, which I don't know if that's a stat. Is that a stat?
That's a stat.
Next you know gen. That.
but my point stands though. Like, it's like what, like,
it's just
teams don't want that, right?
Exactly.
And it's also like, and it's not like, at the end of the day, like, I want to do preface something, for the people that are kind of like maybe saying that, like, why are you guys saying this? But it's like, it's not really why are we saying it. It's what happened, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's a fact. It's happened. One of my picks that I got wrong out of the 5 that I missed in the first round and the 20 that I didn't get in this exact spot, Shedeur Sanders is one of them, right? So it's not like I was this is my opinion or Matt's opinion. Even Matt thought he still be a first round pick, maybe a early second or something. So no one accepted this, right? So,
it's
clearly like that because I feel like, easy to look at someone and be like, you're just blah, 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 this and that, right? And, I want to make sure that as a fair audience or a fair sports podcast here, we want to preface that we did have Shedeur going in the first or being in one of the top 2-3 quarterbacks drafted and stuff. So
we're just trying to explain what's going on here. And I think that it's the most reasonable explanation here is that, he was a distraction. People thought, or teams at least thought he was going to be a distraction. There's the accountability stuff. Like he complained about his offensive line just on Twitter. Like what happens if that's with like pro linemen in a game? And, when he's with the Cleveland Browns or something, he gets sacked like 8 times, loses the game, goes on Twitter immediately, starts talking about his offensive line, right? Like I think there was that probable concern from that. And honestly, like I want to, like another thing that was a red flag to me is that your team, the Steelers, didn't pick him. And we know Mike Tomlin is pretty good with head cases, right? He feels like he can control head cases pretty well with Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, George Pickens, and, countless others, I assume, but he didn't want Shedeur, right? I feel like that's something.
I mean, this kind of goes into our second topic, but we'll kind of jump right into it while addressing the Shedeur thing, and then kind of go into more Steeler related thing here afterwards. But yeah, I mean, it was shocking to me, right? Because when I did my mock draft, I obviously had Shedeur going 9th to the Saints, so I didn't even expect him to be an option for us, right? So I was kind of like, oh wow, we have option, and I felt like, as far as team meetings that did go well. The Steelers interview was supposed to be 4 or 5 hours long with Shedeur. They had a great conversation and a bunch of stuff like that. So I was like, wow, that sounds like if he's there, they'll take him. And we passed up on him 4 times. That's insane. And I don't know what to think. I'm like, man, they must just not have thought that it was worth it having him behind Aaron Rodgers.
Have you accepted?
I still do think Aaron Rodgers is a starting quarterback.
So Aaron Rodgers is definitely your starting quarterback now.
Yeah.
Which means you are not your starting fan anymore, because you said you would retire from the Steelers
for a
year if Aaron Rodgers was there.
Yeah.
That's still relevant.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is still applicable.
Just making sure.
I hate Aaron Rodgers. I just want to make that clear. Even if Aaron Rodgers want to come on this podcast, I wouldn't let him. Just to prove my point.
You sure about that?
100%.
All right. Well, he did ask to come on because,
What? He's behind you, Matt.
Oh my God!
It's gonna be like that Devontae Adams.
You request, yeah.
Clip.
You requested.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel bad for Shedeur because it didn't feel like he did deserve to slip that far. But when teams that needed the quarterback, like the Steelers, pass up on him for D tackle and running backs and whatever else, it's just I don't know. It's just bad, man. And I don't know what we're doing at quarterback. Let's get into it. We drafted a D tackle, Derek Harmon. I think he's a beast. I had him going to us, but
yeah,
like I said, that was an assumption that there was not a quarterback worth taking, which in my opinion, is wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just getting bending over backwards in every way possible for Aaron Rodgers, and it's just kind of sad, in the sense of bro, we're not the fucking Jets, bro.
Seems like you are the Jets.
Like the Jets.
You are the Jets.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's we're getting treated like the Jets. We might as well be the Jets.
Are you sure that it's all because of Aaron Rodgers, or is it just because I don't know? I don't know what it is, but it feels like you guys just didn't have a tangible plan. Like Justin Fields, were you gonna re-sign him? Were there reports? Because I don't actually know if there were rumors that you were trying to sign him again, or were you just trying to let him go?
Yeah, I think we had a number that we gave to him, and then the Jets beat it, bro, very confidently. I think they gave him $20 million a year, and we were probably offering 10, 15, and he probably didn't want that because he was getting this other offer that was just, way more sizable, right? So I don't know. It feels like you said, the bigger picture though, passed up on Lamar when you had Big Ben on his last limps, and you knew you needed a quarterback. You didn't get him then. Passed up on Jalen Hurts, who literally said who thought he was going to be a Steeler, and then. You have the Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and then Mason Rudolph again, and then oh my God, it's never endless.
Well, you did actually get one quarterback in this draft, Will Howard, Ohio State.
Hey man, if you are a Steelers fan, and even if you're just who the fuck is Will Howard? Is he actually any good? Go watch the John Gruden quarterback camp on him, and you'll be like, damn, he's actually kind of good.
I don't know what that is. I haven't watched it, but I've seen him at Ohio State. I've seen him at Kansas State, actually. He's okay. Yeah. He's okay. He could be a starter.
Yeah,
could be.
He could be. He's got the right physical.
By default,
Yeah, he's got the right physical sizes and arm strength and all the fun stuff that, no one controls.
But I think what I can wager, for the Shedeur part and the first round pick is that you guys didn't draft a quarterback in the first round, whether it was Jackson Dart or Shedeur or anyone else, because it was just like the Kenny Pickett thing.
These quarterbacks
right?
suck.
Yeah,
every single one of them sucks, bro. And I wasn't a fan of Cam Ward, and I still don't think he's going to be that great. And you guys have heard my opinion on the rest of them. I don't think any of them are notable, other than maybe Shedeur Sanders. But that's basically even if I try to make it right, it's not. There's nothing there left, right?
Sure.
So it's just okay. The other guy, Shock, Dart, terrible. Just period, blank period. That's it. I don't know how else to explain it. They're not good.
You don't think Jackson Dart's gonna be good?
No, I don't. I think he's an idiot. I think he's a moron.
Why is that?
Because if you've seen his clips, right, his whole thing is playing very reckless at a college level, and I would say he barely had success with that at the college level. And at times, like you're gonna pick a guy who's reckless, throws the ball around the field, tries to like run over defenders and shit, like bro, and he doesn't have the size and frame for it, like as much as you would think someone that tries to do maneuvers like that. And it's just like I don't know, man.
You don't think that getting the mentorship of Jameis Winston will help with that?
Yeah, like what the fuck, dude? Even the hell yeah, just keep throwing that. You're gonna make it. The throw's there.
Well, getting back to the Steelers part of it, I mean, I think you guys have now no quarterback, let's say, for an operative word. Let's say you get Aaron Rodgers. But let's say he just decides to retire. Because honestly, I believe that he's just going to retire at this point. Because if you're not making the decision at this point, I think you're actually strongly considering retirement. And then in that case, the Steelers are kind of screwed, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, like...
No opinion on that one. Nothing I can say on that. Yeah, we're fucked.
You can't win with the quarterback. But, I mean, do you think that they're trying to initiate a rebuild finally in the Tomlin era?
No.
No?
I don't think it's happened, man. Because even then, they still addressed, like, we drafted like we were a win-down team. And it's like we filled in every other hole. D-tackle to stop the run. We have that in Derek Carmen. We have a great young running back who's a beast in Caleb Johnson. So it's like these other pieces are all there. So it's like I don't think they're like thinking of like to themselves like, hey, let's just like let's we're not going to be good enough to compete. And Mike Tomlin, he's going to we're going to be 9-8. Like.
So then what's the point then? So then they really believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with them. Even if you do sign
100%. There was a report from I think Josina Anderson that she said that like before the draft started, the Steelers gave Aaron Rodgers like an ultimatum of like you have to give us a decision within 48 days, 48 hours of the draft, and then
you didn't do it.
We need to know if you're going to be playing with us or not. And they basically said that like after that conversation, they had to come to like a point to where they believe that, we don't need to draft a quarterback. So.
All right. I don't know, man. Because I feel like even if you were to rely on Aaron Rodgers, he didn't really show enough last season to
he's ass.
Yeah, to make me believe,
But see, at the same time, as a Steeler fan, we've taken Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky to winning record. So why couldn't we not do it with Aaron Rodgers?
10-6.
And I'm not saying that because it's
better.
Aaron Rodgers. I'm just saying that was like because he's just quarterback A in spot, and let's make it happen.
10-7 is not marginally better than 9-8. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers has that kind of win percentage in him anymore. But we'll see.
We'll see. And maybe Will Howard will come in. It's all good.
And I want to get back to the Browns here for a second because now their quarterback situation is utterly kind of shit. Honestly,
disgusting.
Like we didn't even talk about how the Browns drafted Shedeur, and I mean, I have a feeling. I mean, you saw the camera work right in the Browns like front office, right? We saw the front office right when they drafted Shedeur. We obviously had every single angle possible once Shedeur was finally drafted, but they did not look particularly thrilled to be doing it. They already drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. I think there's a lot of rumors that point out that this could be owner interference, just like with Deshaun Watson, right? That the owner stepped in, tried to draft Shedeur. He was like, and then they said no. They drafted Dylan Gabriel because that was actually their guy, and they reached for him. But then the ownership still said, hey, he's still out there. I want him. And so they had to draft him.
We want him.
Yeah. And it's probably going to be ridiculous, right? Like, do you think that he has a chance to be the starting quarterback for the Browns?
Not this year.
No?
Not this year.
I feel like this year more than ever.
Next year.
Right?
No. So my problem is that those coaches and people are still there, the decision makers, right? So if anything, it'd be like a situation where like those guys don't play Shedeur, they suck again, and then get fired, and a lot of those quarterbacks are out the door, right? Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco. And then next year, there's a coach that comes in. If this is what the owner wanted all along, then it's like there might be a higher coach who says, like, hey, we need to make sure Shedeur plays. And then I could kind of see it. Maybe like, I could think of a coach that has a lot of relations to Shedeur that want him to see him play. Maybe like Deion Sanders.
Whoa, really?
You know?
Wow.
Yeah, he's coached him before too. It's crazy. You wouldn't believe it.
Didn't realize that.
So it's like one of those situations. I think that's the earliest. I think this year, though, I think it'll be between Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, and then Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur will fight it out next year.
Honestly, I feel like, I think one of those guys has to leave, right? There's no way they carry all four of them. So I assume that, I feel like Joe Flacco is the one who's going to be out in Cleveland. Or Kenny Pickett.
I think you need a veteran, older quarterback, though. And I think if I had to place money on which quarterback gets cut, it's going to be Kenny Pickett. He doesn't provide anything. You should spend a third and a fifth on the two rookies. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then Joe Flacco is the older mentor type of guy anyway, so you need him around. And then what does Kenny Pickett provide? He's not even good.
Bridge quarterback ability?
To what? To Arch Manning next year?
Oh my gosh. No, you're probably right. I guess Joe would probably be the first quarterback, and I guess he would be the starter. I do think Shedeur is going to start this year, though, because of ownership interference. We saw that even though Deshaun Watson was just absolutely awful last year, they kept playing him until he had to basically tear his Achilles in order to get off the field, right? They just kept starting him. Everything was wrong with the Browns. And they kept on starting him because probably of, ownership interference. I think that, they're probably going to lose the first 4 games. They're going to put in, Dylan Gabriel. He might suck. And then they're going to go to Shedeur like week 6. I'm thinking week 6.
Nah. If in that type of scenario, it'd be where the coaches get fired.
Which will probably be week 5. But,
That's so bad for Stefanski, man. He's a good coach, too.
I do think he's a good coach, but look at the roster that he has right now. He doesn't really have anything.
It's awful.
Right? Like, I can't name a single... he has Mason Graham now. He has Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett. Judkins. No Nick Chubb anymore. Jerry Jeudy, I guess.
And Sampson.
So it's like... It's not conducive to winning, and you got the AFC North right there. Bengals and Ravens are probably going to contend. Steelers probably in the mix somehow. So, I don't know where they can find wins. And then, again, that's the thing about Shedeur. He's going to generate a lot of media attention. It's like the new Tebow right here. So, it will happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it will. I'm very pessimistic about that. I think it's probably for the best of him for not to play behind that dog shit team, and he's gonna put out horrible tape. We'll
see. Maybe he was bound to do that anyway. But all right.
Damn. Tough.
I'm just not the biggest fan. I'm not the biggest fan, admittedly. I will say that he's probably not worth a fit. He shouldn't have fallen all the way to the 5th. I understand it now if the attitude issues were correct, but I just there was a lot of stuff where I was just like, man, it doesn't look like you're starting an NFL quarterback when you do stuff like that. You can't wait in the pocket at Colorado for 12 seconds, right? You have to hurry up in the NFL. Caleb Williams has already learned that the hard way. And I don't even think Shedeur is talented as Caleb. And if he doesn't...
Nah, definitely not.
If he doesn't think to adjust, that's the biggest thing is even if you have a poor attitude about your offensive line and blaming everyone else, you got to learn how to improve yourself. Do you have enough humility to think about improving yourself? And I'm just worried that he doesn't have that. But,
Yeah, I guess we'll see, man. I don't totally disagree with you on that point. So
yeah,
I do hope the best for him, though, because I think he's actually good. Like I said, I put him high in my mock draft. So, one day I'd like to be right about it. Like we said in the beginning, we do this to be right, right? So
yeah, and I don't want to play armchair psychologist with him. I don't know him at all. I don't want to trash him, but it's just the impression that I get from him, and that's just what I believe. But, let's move on here to our off-season team grades here. Both of us have a team that we kind of want to grade, and, let's throw in a team that we also like in terms of what they had in the off-season. But let's start off with your team, the Steelers. What kind of grade would you give them so far for their off-season?
I'd give him a B. I think it's hard for me to go anything higher because we are kind of missing a quarterback, and even with Aaron Rodgers, it sounds like it's eventually going to be our quarterback. It's not a very good quarterback room, and it's like you said, is that going to get it done? And ultimate goal here is to win a championship. We're not really getting there. with that type of quarterback room at all, right? So there's that. But in every other way, from facet of getting better, we did great. We had DK, amazing. I think great second round pick for a DK is good value. And you get him for that. You re-sign him, great. You picked up Caleb Johnson, young, fresh running back. Maybe not letting go of Najee was my favorite decision, but you did a good job replacing him. That's great. You still have your same O-line. You still have the Pickens. You still have Freiermuth. You still got weapons. And then defensively, you picked up Darius Slay, which is great. You picked up Derek Harmon in the draft. Cameron Hayward hasn't retired yet, so that's always a win. And then it's just you're still a good team. So I'm being optimistic about everything other than the quarterback room, which gives me a B, right? You can't have an A with no quarterback, and you can't be much worse when you fill up so many holes on your team. So that's where I come to a B.
It's pretty solid right there.
Is that a fair evaluation?
I would. I don't know your team.
Would you give it the same grade?
I do believe that DK is a big addition for your team. You needed a second wide receiver. If you'll use the second wide receiver with Arthur Smith, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have a quarterback to use him with. That's just the biggest thing, right? So, I mean, in terms of filling your offseason needs, I think you did solid, but I think you need a quarterback. Maybe I'd give it a B- because you don't have the quarterback. I'm a particularly harsh grader myself, and I would rate the Niners offseason in general. I'd give it a C+, honestly. I'm pretty disappointed in kind of the way, I understand how we are approaching this offseason, where we are shedding a lot of starters, right? We need to save up money for Brock Purdy's deal. I get that. That's totally fair. But I don't know if this is a contending team at the moment, because even when you do all of that, even when you get rid of Leonard Floyd, Dre Greenlaw, Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, Malik Collins, who else am I forgetting? Aaron Banks, Jalen Moore, Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, so many losses. And the biggest thing to me is that we didn't even make a real big signing, or any signings whatsoever, except for one big guy, tight end. His name is Luke Farrell, I want to say.
Luke Farrell.
Yeah, I totally forgot his name. I knew he was the backup tight end for the Jaguars. I was thinking of Brenton Strange just because of fantasy.
He's the third best run blocking tight end in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't care. But, I'm glad we signed our actual good tight end, George Kittle, to an extension today. That was great. I love him. I'm so glad he gets to stay with his career here. And we got the extension done early for once. But
I tend to agree with you at the C+, but there is one huge addition that you did have that you haven't mentioned yet.
Oh, no.
So that's what I would like to bring attention to. And that's bringing back Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator. That is fucking huge, man. And it's one of those things that can make up for and I don't even want to sound crazy. I don't want people to think I don't know what I'm talking about, but deficiencies elsewhere. Scheme can definitely overcome a couple losses, right? A corner for a D tackle that you might be needing, so, and development of players, right? So you have a new coach that I have, nothing but the absolute, highest in regards for Robert Saleh, especially in terms of just coaching defense. Forget head coaching, just every defense he's been on has been great. And I mean, Jets have always been top 5. The Niners were top 5 every time. It's great defenses. So it's going to be a great defense now. I don't care who's there. And I know Matt's making a face. I know for some people that might not see, but Matt making a face where it's yeah. That's how I make the sound for it.
Look.
No, he's going to make up for deficiencies. And that's just look at the Jets. Look at the Niners before you guys. The guys developed into who they were because of Saleh. And he has a huge part of that. And I think there'll be a second wave of Niner, not want to say greats or anything, but just good Niner starters on defense. That is 100% happening this year. And there's going to be guys we might have not heard of. My guys might be we have heard of taking another step, right? Lenore's and everything like that. That's all going to happen with Saleh, and I'm a true believer in that. So I think that's huge. I think it's huge and can't be understated.
My concern with that is that I have full confidence in the scheme for the first time since DeMeco Ryans was the defensive coordinator. Our last 2 defensive coordinators, I was a little bit worried about, but I do have full confidence in Saleh and his ability to develop our players. He was able to get the Dre Greenlaws. He was able to get the, I don't think he was around for Diamador, but, he was able to develop those guys and, make them into a top-tier defense. But the fact remains is that the starting defensive players for the Niners that are carrying over from last year are, I think, three. I think it's Warner, I think it's Bosa, I think it's Lenore. Maybe one of the safeties, because we just heard Malik Mustafa is also hurt for the year, which is great, lovely. But it's relying a lot on players. We drafted a lot of defensive players, which is exactly what we needed to do because we were desperate. We had to do it because we literally didn't have defensive players left to kind of start. So we needed to do that. But I just wonder how many of these guys can be starters right away and be able to contribute. This is an aging core right now. This is the window right now. This is last year where Brock Purdy's going to be cheap. Maybe you can get a couple more years out of that, but then Christian McCaffrey's going to be 29 next year. You got Fred Warner, he's going to get a little bit older. Nick Bosa. George Kittle is already, I think, in his 30s. So it concerns me that, this has to be a draft that you absolutely nail. I don't know if they necessarily nailed it. They did a lot of reaches for a couple of guys. That's why I give it a C+, because it's relying on a lot of things. And maybe they're just building for the future at this point. But, what's the point of doing that when you're paying Purdy $60 million, right? So,
well, it's not building for the future. It's building for a team that can be good now and the future. Because you guys are still good now. And if anybody disagrees with that, I talked to Vegas about it. They still have Niners over under at 10.5. Like, that's a good team.
7 starters gone? How many starters gone?
Who cares? Stop with that, Matt. Like, oh my God.
When you lose a starting player from the team, that matters. There's only 44. There's only 22 players starting.
Day, but you guys have almost all your top 5 players last year and top 5 players this year are the same. And there's no other way of looking at that.
That's fair. I will give you that.
Okay, so, and then you have Kyle Shanahan, who's a fucking offensive genius, who's been able to, produce insane amount of players, just from scheme. And then the same thing on the other end now. So you have the A+ coaching. You have one of the best defensive minds and offensive minds in all of sports linked up together. So, that's a great fucking start for trying to figure out how to fill 7 starter holes. That's what, at least they have that. It'd be different if we're dude, they lost 5 starters on their defense, and now Brandon Staley's their defensive coordinator.
That's true.
I'd be very concerned.
I think it's just.
I'm not saying you can't be concerned. I think it's a C+, B-, that could potentially be a B+ at the highest.
I think
because if you develop guys, the guys you might have got for a lower, cheaper contract like that, we don't know household names yet that. Could develop into something. Or if you guys have guys already that you've been previously drafted that you might need a little extra year or two, it's potentially a B+. You save so much money. Because if it works, then you save so much money.
I'll give you this.
And now you can sign Purdy to a contract and still be a good team. If it works. And which is ideally the goal.
This is what they're doing. The 2022 Kansas City Chiefs, when they had to sign Patrick Mahomes to that huge extension, they got rid of Tyreek Hill because they couldn't afford him. And then they drafted all these players like George Karlaftis.
And they all
Trent
became
McDuffie,
hits.
Right?
That draft class afterwards was a great draft class.
And they won 2 Super Bowls. I think that's what they're trying to do. But my knowledge of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's drafts just makes me that concerned. And now we're not in a position where we can say, okay, we could. Well, even if they suck, we can wait for these guys. Nope, these guys are starters now. This is a lot to gamble on. This is probably their best possible choice. But that's just why I think I'm less confident than ever.
In the Marvel universe of life, if Doctor Strange is there and he has looked at all the different possibilities, this is the only possibility that you guys can contend now, be good during the future, and still sign Purdy. This is the only thing that could have been done. There's no other way around it unless you're getting rid of Purdy and then you bring back better guys, you sign better guys, which it doesn't seem like you guys would even make sense to do. Or if you guys are just
you forgot we did get one guy.
Let's just suck.
We got one guy.
Huh?
Macaroni Jabroni, bro. We never talked about him, but yes, he's here. The prophecy from 4 years ago, where I said I'd kill myself, has come back. But
damn, bro, you were both protesting basically, bro, because the Rodgers and Mac Jones signings is crazy.
4 years has given me some time to cool off, though, so I'm good with it.
Nice. But we did mention we wanted to talk about a couple other teams real quickly. The one I wanted to bring up was the surprisingly the Las Vegas Raiders.
Hey,
so we're talking
that was exactly what I was going to talk about. So 2 for 1.
easy. So we can just talk about one and then call it a day.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. So I mean, it's obvious, dude. You go from okay, just take for example what they had last year. I would say probably the worst quarterback room in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, god awful quarterback room, and then put that next to a bottom 5 coach last year, a bottom 3 coach last year. Antonio Pierce was not shout out to him, bro. But this was basically only got the job because of the
protests and
Bisaccia incident from last year or two years ago, whenever they last fired their coach. And the team loved him, and the team loved him, and then they signed Josh McDaniels and said, and it didn't work. So this time, the team loves him. The team loves him. The players for a reason, not GMs. Stupid, bro. It's not how this works. So, you got Pete Carroll. This is the whole purpose of why I brought that up. It's an insane upgrade. I know, and Pete might be an incel old man, but he's still a great fucking coach, bro. And I don't know if he's the top 5, top 10 coach like he once was, but he's still an enormous. Even if you go from 32nd to 15, that is a huge upgrade. And then you go from running back to the last upgrade, and it's people are they overdrafted for Genty. They had Zamir White and Alexander Madison last year, bro. They're probably scarred, bro. Why are Raider fans should be more happy about that? And we live in the Bay Area, so we run into a lot of Raider fans and stuff, and things of that nature. But I think if you're a Raider fan, you're absolutely over the moon with a jump from quarterback from probably 32nd to top 15, a jump from coaching from 32nd to probably top 15, and then most likely with running back too. Once Genty starts playing, you think he's going to be bad? I don't think so. So 3 huge upgrades, that in itself, and we can get into the draft and other signings and stuff like that, but just in generally speaking, any team that does that should have an A, and that's what I would give them.
No, I mean, they improved on the 3 most valuable positions right there. First of all, they got an actual offensive star now in Janty, which I believe, we're calling it early, but I think he's going to be great in Las Vegas. And,
yeah, he'll be fine.
Yeah. They got a real GM, they got a real coach in the room, and, they improved on the most important position, which is quarterback. Just like you said, G, worst quarterback room in the NFL. Gino is actually competent, and, more than competent, he's probably pretty good at what he does. And, I just have no complaints with the Raiders. They just look like a team that actually has something now compared to something like last year, which they had nothing. They had nothing going for them. There was nothing that was inspiring about them other than when is Devontae Adams going to be traded, right? And
where.
Exactly. We all knew where, but yeah.
Yeah. But so that's the thing with them. It's hey, impressive, man. And I feel like in our lifetime, especially back when they were in Oakland, it was always just the Raiders were just the mess. They were the unorganized piece of shit, never good.
Say how you really feel.
It doesn't seem like they ever had a plan, because the one time they did with John Gruden fucked it all off. And so now, since then, they never recovered, it felt like. Antonio Brown, Derek Carr, the countless other players they let go, Josh Jacobs and shit and whatnot, coaches fired, McDaniels twice, all this stuff, right? Yeah, man. Yeah. It's nice for them. Good for them. Good for Raider fans. They have a good offseason this year, so I wanted to give them a shout out.
Yeah, I hope they do well. They've never done well, and I've been a lot.
Well, I don't think they're going to do well still, but
there's something to root for.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is going to do it for our post-draft episode. Like G said, you can find us anywhere. Our social medias are on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, sports_counsel. You can find our Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from. You can listen to this and our many other episodes. We're going to be doing a couple more NBA episodes when the playoffs are approaching, so you got to keep on, listening for that. Subscribe. Our YouTube is live and functional, so you can also go to that as well. Same name, if you couldn't tell. But that is going to do it for today's episode. Any last thoughts?
Hey, man, fuck Aaron Rodgers.
Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go if he comes? What's your plan?
I haven't really thought about that far ahead. You might probably should have, because you knew this was coming. But, even though we all knew it was happening, I just...
Do you need an audition or something? Try out for somewhere?
Maybe. I might let's see where the vibes just take me.
Okay.
I don't want to hop on a bad team either, you know. I want to, obviously, just Trevor out there who's calling my name maybe sometimes. But we'll see.
Sounds like G's going to be a Chiefs fan. All right. We're going to do it. That's going to do it. Thank you so much, guys. Goodbye.
See you.